I guess that would do it for this week. Henrik, what is our next film?
I actually have no faintest idea. Are we looking something classical? Maybe sci-fi?
I think we are going to look at if you are willing, if this podcast is willing, if I am willing
That's
to
pretty big if.
yeah. If we are willing to return to the US cinema, is this podcast going to do this? Or are we out of the US area?
Maybe not. Maybe not, because American cinema typically is rat piss and puke. So
Oh. Alien as well?
also very alien. Are you trying to foreshadow shadow something here for us?
You will find out that one next week. Thanks for joining us and see you next week.
Yeah, until then. That went actually pretty well. I must confess.
Yeah.
I was surprised how easy this was actually do.
Yeah, this was.
Yeah.
Looking forward to next week. Maybe we don't need that holiday after all.
I'm also thinking that maybe we can, skip the holiday. I mean, in all honesty, if we are supposed to take a longer break from this podcast, in that case, I guess we should kind of give a pre-warning to our listeners, like mention it like couple of weeks before we take the holiday, just so that everybody, or our one listener, our mom, or your mom, because my mom refuses to listen to this triple, will actually know that we are taking a holiday.
Oh, that's not important. Our faithful listeners will come back to it, especially because this podcast is starting to be the only place where people can get hold of me. So that's my little trick here to make people listen to this fucking show. I'm no longer on WhatsApp. I'm no longer on Facebook.
You're essentially holding your entire social circles as a hostage, just so that you can gather up some listeners. This is the state of film podcasting today.
I'm trying to be a bit of a Willard White of my generation. That's that might be a little bit of a too nerdy reference. Would it be scene by scene?
Well, if we have to, we can have a really quick scene by scene.
Okay. Scene 1. Once upon a time. Il était une fois, something like that, yeah. Let's just describe what is happening, more or less, as the best of my ability. Why do I have to do this?
Well, you're the one who still picks the flick. Like, honest to God, I started to do my backgrounds for the film, and I went on to internet, as you do, to look up on the easy to go Wikipedia articles that would kind of give you the free synopsis and give you ready-made analysis, so that you don't have to come up with your own stuff for the podcast. And I noticed that none of the usual pundits that I visit to steal material actually had ever, covered this film. And I was curious that why is this case? Like, why doesn't our typical art house cinema experts ever talk about this movie? And then I watched the movie and I went, oh, that's the reason.
Curious. How come?
Yeah. But anyways, we opened the movie with a scene of the director sharpening a razor blade.
Yes.
In the glow of a pale moonlight.
The sharpener is leaning on the doorknob for one reason or another. He goes to balcony and there is the cloud, cutting the moon in half, followed by calf's eye getting scalpelled, suggested to be the lady getting scalpelled, or razor-bladed. Scene 2. A man on a bicycle, dressed up in some feminine outfit. What is that? Do you want to add on it already?
It's a nun's abbot.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. That, or at least it's supposed to be.
with what looks like a radio hanging around his neck.
Or some kind of a wooden box. And what is important to take note is that the title card clearly states that this happens 8 years later, even though there are no any kind of a visual hints to give to the audience that any time has actually passed.
And the nun suit kind of doubles as weird flapping ears for this guy. There's a quick shot of the guy cycling in complete darkness, cross-faded with him continuing cycling during daytime, which cuts to woman in an apartment reading a book of sorts which seems to be about sewing. The woman also has mice or some such rodents in a cage, throws the book on the table next to the cage, as she just has randomly felt a sudden urge to widen her eyes in what looks like some kind of a moment of bewilderment, walks to the window, and it's suggested that she'd see the cyclist there as she gives this surprised look once again, condemning look even. It's like the shots are in the wrong order. We get her reaction first, which is followed by the cyclist falling on the bike on the pavement threshold. It looks like the cyclist falls entirely with purpose. Woman runs to the street and simply keeps kissing this man. This bicycle scene, this is a reproduction of a painting by Vermeer, and Dali was a great admirer of this painter. She now takes the man's box upstairs, and in it she finds a tie, and she puts the tie on the bed, on top of a dress. Then the tie then wraps itself around a shirt on the bed as she is observing the bed from a distance. It's almost like she makes the tie teleport around the shirt with her mind powers. The man scene. The man from the street, now suddenly teleports to the apartment, as far as we know. So never mind that tie. And he's quite intrigued by a hole in his hand, from which the ants are crawling up around his palm. Finally, she gets close to him and he shifts her attention finally to her and keeps staring at her in a pretty hilarious fashion. We're shown a woman's hairy armpit. Then we shift to some kind of a hairy-looking ball or creature on sand.
I'm guessing that's a sea urchin.
I see. Thank you. At least we have some animal experts on this podcast.
in more ways than one.
That hairy-looking ball, whatever sea urchin, is cross-faded to a God's eye view, where a person is poking a severed hand with a stick. Then we get a widened scope of what is happening, and the young guy or a girl, we don't really know at this point, is in the middle of some kind of a town square, or that's the interpretation that I got, standing there and just poking the hand with a stick while police is trying to keep the curious crowd away from this person. And in the severed hand close-up though, it seems that the hand would be on a mattress or something such. We see the man and the woman from the flat overlooking from the balcony window, and the man seems to be joyful about this. And the police chief talks something to the person and puts the hand in the box that we just saw the woman carry into her flat. And now from a bird's eye view we see the police are kind of saluting this person and leaves her with the box and disperses the crowd. The man in the window just keeps staring at the lady on the street, or what I believe was a lady, looking like he's hoping for her to be run over by a car. The following cuts here don't make sense, really. In the close-up, she holds the box in her hands, and in the full shot, the box is on the ground, and then again it's in her hand, and then far away from her on the ground. This might have been intentional or unintentional, probably intentional. The car finally runs her over. But never mind that, because it's time for some groping. Because the guy in the flat is having this intense look in his eye, this perverted, this kind of lust, and starts suddenly breast groping this woman in the apartment. And it's cross-cut to her being naked while the groping continues. And it looks like there's some kind of a Dracula shit going on. There's blood dripping from the guy's mouth while he looks to be in some sort of a trance, while goo is dropping from his face, as the breasts are then cross-cut with the groping of her ass. And the woman now runs away into a corner. And next point of interest for our listeners is donkeys on a piano. dead donkeys, mind you. The guy then grabs 2 ropes from the floor, and he can't, for his surprise, pull them forward easily because the ropes are indeed attached to 2 pianos with donkeys on top of them. So he keeps pulling them like it'd be his usual exercise routine at the gym, I don't know, and the donkey faces are mutilated. There are 2 guys attached to the rope, and they look shocked. Also some kind of a religious members.
I'm taking that they are supposed to be abbots or priests.
And these 2 people change places in between cuts. This rotting donkey thing, this is a suggested thematic reference to Federico Garcia Lorca's, I probably pronounced that absolutely incorrectly, and to other writers of those times. The rotting donkeys are a reference to the popular children's novel Platero y Yo by Juan Ramón Jiménez. And Buñuel and Dali hated this guy. The woman runs to the door then and escapes as the guy runs after her, but gets his right hand between the door as she keeps pushing the door shut. And now we see that once again the hand has the ants. Never mind that though, because it's time for this guy to teleport on the bed, which apparently is not anymore in this original room, but it's in this other room now. The bed and the guy. And he also has the severed arm box around his neck again. About 3 o'clock in the morning, the title card says in this moment, and the man runs to ring a doorbell of the apartment. A new man is introduced. Somebody's shaking a drink or maybe even an ash urn, and his arms are extended through 2 holes in a wall.
Yeah, that's a cocktail shaker, which I'm guessing is a visualization of a doorbell.
I see. The guy on the bed notices this. She opens the door for the gentleman and gets scolded for something as the guy crashes in and throws some of the guy's clothes onto the street, this guy who was laying on the bed.
Yeah, more precisely, he throws the nun's abbot to the street.
Right, so already getting to Buñuel's religious statements, I suppose.
Or no statements at all, in no way or sense.
Well, that was the intention, I guess, most of all. Looks like the gentleman asks the man to put his head against the wall, so he does. Cut to 16 years before, says the title card. But in the movie's world, it doesn't seem like we have changed into any kind of a previous event or anything. We're just continuing on from where we just left. The gentleman then finds, to his surprise, some books on a table, and these are covered in sand. So there's a lot of beach references here, sprinkled all around. The guy still is holding his head against the wall, and the gentleman hands a book from the table to the man leaning against the wall. We realize that these 2 guys are the same guy, at least face-wise, and the leaning guy appears to have 2 books on his hands all of a sudden, and these 2 books suddenly turn into 2 revolvers. And so the leaning guy shoots his doppelganger, and the doppelganger falls on his knees as he dies. Simultaneously, he though teleports into a forest, and now leaning against the back of a topless woman. The guy dies in the forest, while the woman fades away from this image, as 4 gentlemen find the body. One of them runs to get 2 other guys to the scene, possibly to inform of what's happened, and they seem to be not even taken aback or confused or surprised at all. But they're coming, and the people carry the body in a way of complete indifference. Like, take this guy away from my land. Fade to black as they carry the body, but it's back to flat, as the woman sees a butterfly on the wall. The butterfly seems to have a pattern on it that looks like a human skull. And now the guy apparently teleports into the room, or we become aware that he is there. He suddenly puts his hand on his mouth, moves hand away, and his mouth has disappeared. And as a response, the woman starts to put on some lipstick on herself. Or something, and now the mouthless mouth turns into the woman's armpit hair. And as a reaction, she drops her lipstick and is shocked. Essentially, this woman is there to be shocked at given situations when things don't make sense. But not always. But she realizes that her armpit hair is gone because her armpit hair has teleported into the place of the guy's mouth. She shows him her tongue and leaves the room with a smile on her face. But as she gets out of the room, she realizes, or kind of seems to know, that she is now on a beach, of course.
Something that is important to note here is that at this point of the film, previously in the movie we have gotten title cards which have stated what timeline we are currently following, 8 years later, 16 years earlier, but during this final moment, we haven't gotten a new title card, anyway, implying us that the timeline would have shifted, so for all thoughts and purposes, we are still following that 16 years earlier narrative.
True. Makes perfect sense. There's some other guy in there in a striped shirt on the beach, and a woman happily runs to him. He shows her his wristwatch for the time, I guess. The man seems to be uninterested in her first, or has switched to a different channel altogether. She anyway kisses him, then gets the attention of the guy as they walk away. Looks like the box has been trashed on the beach rocks, which held the severed hand, along with some clothes, apparently. I suppose the non-clothes. The guy kicks the box, and the woman hands to him one by one the clothes articles, as he then throws them away again, one by one. Then we get a title card in spring. And here we have something that would have been a nice ending. A boy and a girl walk away from the camera in the beach, hand in hand. But that turns into their death, actually. Because it looks like the guy and the girl are now half under sand. And they look dead, like some kind of a stuffed animals with some items on them or around them. Hard to tell what those are. Ending was supposed to be a bit different, but for budgetary reasons it was changed to what it is now. In the original script, the final shot was to feature corpses of the man and woman consumed by swarms of flies. But this special effect was modified due to these limitations in budget.
So that's essentially is the film as it proceeds. So how about you, Karri? Would you recommend an Andalusian Dog?
Yes, I would recommend an Andalusian Dog. Just for the sheer experiment that you see. I wouldn't say that I would make it as a habit to watch this type of surrealist avant-garde films. But as an experiment, it's interesting. But I think any sane person would go full on Salvador Dali if they would keep on watching this shit every day.
Most likely. I too, on my end, I would recommend an Andalusian Dog. However, that recommendation comes with the caveat that I'm not entirely certain that if you actually watch the film, you are going to like it. This might be one of those rare occasions where I do kind of say, please go and check out the film, even though I'm pretty sure that you're gonna hate my guts after you've seen it. But all around, I do feel that when it comes to the dreamlike element and the dreamlike storytelling, which is something that many directors have tried to do and have tried to tap into, like, for example, take a look at Dario Argento and essentially most of the giallo genre. On that record, I do feel that David Lynch also, but unlike most of the giallos, David Lynch actually manages to pull this shit off. And I also feel that an Andalusian Dog is a case study on how you can actually make dream logic work for your film and build a film around that. In my opinion, the typical mistake that is done whenever a film tries to apply dream logic into its narrative is that it doesn't go far enough. Like it messes up with some things as the dreams tend to do, but it's still kind of too limited and too normally constructed to work as a dream. And because of that, I do feel that there are two ways how you can have dreams as an element in your films and make it work. The first one is the Inception route, where you use dreams as a plot point, but you don't ever really try to have a dream elements in your film in the way that they would affect the structure of the movie. Like Inception, in the end, it's very, very typical three-act structure heist thriller film where just the dreams mean that every now and then some crazy shit happens. Some crazy shit happens. Some crazy shit happens. Some crazy shit happens.
Some crazy shit happens.
And the other route where how you can use dreams in favor of your film is the David Lynch and Andalusian Dog method, where you really start to reshape the construct of your film in favor of the dream-likeness and the dream-like qualities. And the reason why so many films fail in this is that they kind of try to have it in both ways. They try to have a typical film but still insert quote-unquote strangeness because dreamlike. And that's where the things go to shit show. So on that regard, I would say please go and check out An Andalusian Dog, but like there's an extremely heavy possibility that after you've seen it, you don't feel that you have gotten much out of it, or you have experienced a film that you would have liked to experience because the film doesn't make rat's ass of a sense.
The common problem with dream sequences in films is that they still try to ape reality too much, especially if you're a lazy director, of course. But in most cases, it is too real. Like they should be playing more with the elements, the whole structure of what you see, maybe have like a limited vision, not having the full scope of vision that you see everything in a room or in a space that you inhabit, and just because everything gets distorted in a dream, and they rarely make sense.
Yeah. Like to give you a kind of a case example of this problem, even though I did like the movie, I too have to admit that, for example, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which has a dream sequence, in the hospital dream sequence, it suffers from this particular problem. It is a dream sequence where there are weird shit like the pile of bodies in the dumpster, but everything else in the hospital works as it would in real life. There are just few instances where the film takes some kind of a liberty from what would really happen in real world because dreamlike, but once again, those are also instances that could actually exist in the reality of the film's universe. Like that pile of bodies could be there in film's reality because Michael Myers.
If anything worked in that dream sequence in itself, it was maybe the inexorable approach of the character, that there was a certain hopelessness that I often have chase dreams, and that was an inexorable way that you couldn't escape this character who keeps chasing you no matter what.
I on my end, I did like the visuals. I did like the feeling that sequence had, but even I have to admit that didn't really work as a simulation of a dream.
Well, aside from talking about Rob Zombie movies, doing an andalou episode, what was your favorite shot?
I'm gonna skip the question. I don't have a favorite shot in the film. There are shots that I like, there are shots that I felt were not that remarkable that they would stand out from all the other shots. Like I had shots and I had shots that somehow were remarkable when compared to other shots of the film, but I don't have like one big favorite.
Yeah, if I would have to pick something, then there is of course the iconic shot just before the eye has been cut into, and you see this close-up of the woman just before the slicing. But it's more like the experience itself and how these pictures maybe feel together. Do we want to talk about Salvador Dali?
Well, if we are going to talk about something, I guess the only thing we can talk about is Salvador Dali. Like to our dear listeners who might be at this point wondering what the fuck is going on and why the structure of the episode is all over the place, why nothing makes sense to you, and why the entire episode frankly feels like Karri got artistically carried away in the editing booth. The reason is that Chien, Andalou is a film that has on purpose been constructed in a way that it doesn't carry essentially anything within it. Like there is no symbolism, there is no message, there are no real themes. And the creators of the film, most notably the director, has gone on record to state this out, making it perfectly clear that it is possible that as an audience member you might read into something to this film. You might read that there is a symbolism in some of these scenes. You might read that there is some kind of an inner meaning in what the film shows to you. But all of that, according to the makers, is purely inside your own head, and it's just a symptom of you being, well, essentially too dumb for the film. And because of that, we can't really give you the typical the flick-clack experience here and dwell deep into scenes and think, what does it mean? Because it doesn't fucking mean anything. And that's also why we really can't cover the quickies, because essentially the quickies would also be a tool for us to insert a narrative framework or a structural framework around and into the film. And once again, the film denounces all and every framework. So you can't really do anything. There's nothing that you can talk about. If you talk about the film in some depth, in that case you are doing it wrong and you are a stupid ass. Which is the reason, I guess, why most people never actually analyze.
No. Once I was at my summer house and I had an anteater steak. There was a Golden Gate circled on a pizza, and in an assiduous apropos, structural violence involving an orbit of white framework inside a tablet, while I was drinking on the Juraska airport, sipping on a wine.
Well, that was poetic.
Apropos. Yes, that was an impression of, my best impression of Salvador Dali and this film, where nothing makes sense.
Maybe close enough. That could be the official review of the film. I had a steak. Was yummy. Or even that would be kind of too clear. There would be too much construction and too much narrative in that sentence.
Dali indeed was a surrealist, joined the surrealist group in 1929, was kicked out of the surrealist club after he apologized for one controversial art installment, but he was unfazed and claimed he himself is surrealism. And he always had this very pompous, high sense of himself, and of course the wonderful mustache.
Yeah, that he did. And that's all the great qualities that you can actually get with loving and proper caring when you are growing up from your parents, as poor Salvador did.
Yeah. There is, of course, a lot we could talk about Salvador Dali, but essentially a world-renowned painter who might be just responsible for the most famous painting of them all, The Persistence of Memory, his most famous work, where the clocks seem to be melting outside. Buñuel, his buddy from Salvador Dali's school years, is quite a character himself as well. There was a bit of a Napoleon schism. Buñuel, somewhat derisively, he refused to be a part of the team making the film Napoleon, this Abel Gonz's famous silent film, and his colleague Epstein dismissed Buñuel angrily, famously saying, quote, "How can a little asshole like you dare to talk that way about a great director like Gons? You seem rather surrealist. Beware of surrealists. They are crazy people." End quote.
which was kind of the common consensus during the times. I mean, surrealists were not that highly regarded in society or even in art circles until some of them really started to break through. One of those cases being, for example, Salvador Dali, who made surrealism more accepted. But for the longest time, the surrealism and the art move that preceded surrealism, Dadaism, were kind of seen as, well, trite and undeserving the notion of being art.
When it comes to this film here, it was Buñuel's intention to shock and insult the intellectual bourgeoisie of his youth. Later he said that, quote, historically this film represents a violent reaction against what at that time was called avant-garde cine, which was directed exclusively to the artistic sensibility and to the reason of the spectator. He also said, quote, what can I do about the people who adore all that is new, even when it goes against their deepest convictions, or about the insincere, corrupt press and the inane herd that saw beauty or poetry in something which was basically no more than a desperate, impassioned call for murder, end quote. This last one he said after the film was shown for the first times, and it seemed that it was accepted in the artistic circles, to his great surprise and annoyance.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to be absolutely certain. Why was the film in the end accepted? It might be that what kind of a bite him in the ass was that he should have stayed with, or he should have chosen Dadaism, since both of them kind of share the same anarchistic qualities and the same kind of a temptation to fuck with the bourgeoisie. The biggest kind of a divination, at least in my opinion, between the two art movements being that surrealism placed a much heavier emphasis on psychological matters and more specifically to subconsciousness, where Dadaism disregarded even psychology and subconsciousness, and saw also those as a form of artistic confinement.
It's an interesting experiment, an adventure into the lusty, libidinous mind of human psyche, those animalistic behaviors, all coming to the surface on this film. It's more than likely impossible to do what they are exactly talking about when coming to direct or create this film. As they were saying that when they were creating the script, it was just something that kept flowing out of their mind as they were writing it. Of course, there are always some realities that hit. For example, when it comes to the last shot of the film, there were budgetary reasons that they couldn't put what they wanted on the film exactly, at least according to the first thoughts. They couldn't proceed with that first thought. But in many ways, I think there is a lot of animalistic behavior that you can see, all the kind of the darkest secrets that we think about in certain moments that we never come to speak to anyone about. Well, everybody has situations where you might have the sudden urge to go grope some girl's titties, or you would have weird visions, at least in your dreams, where you see a character and then your mind does tricks to this character. You want to play with the character. You can do whatever you want as the dream master, so to speak. You can have these dreams where you are in full control and you can hurt people and see the end result. And as these are this hurting people, killing people, groping people, all of these are things that are not societally accepted. And it's something that it's always something that is denied from us, is that the mind wants to play with.
Hey guys.
Oh, hey.
Hello? Alright, can you hear me, bud?
Yeah.
Good. Alright, so are we just doing this, just us, or is your friend joining in, or...
Henrik is here, I think, still.
Okay. I don't think I hear him.
Henrik, are you here? Okay, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, 잠깐만. Hey, did you fix the problem?
I think so. Okay, Lee, great to have you back here.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you again as well.
Would be great to go have some fun once again in
Yeah.
the Warsaw night.
True.
But apart from that, we have a little bit of a film called Time to Hunt here, and we were happy to get you back here to talk about your experience with the film from the South Korean perspective. How was it for you as an experience?
As a Korean person, yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Like I love the setting, the dystopian setting, but I think it got a little boring after the middle point.
Okay,
Right.
that's it for today.
So yes, sure, yeah, I guess.
All right, well, thanks a lot for tuning in and helping us out in this little session,
No problem.
Mr. Lee. By the way, since we are doing this Ancient Andalou episode and nothing makes sense in this film, are you aware of surrealist cinema, Mr. Lee?
Surrealistic. Please do enlighten me.
Well,
maybe some
Well,
examples.
Karri can drop you a YouTube link. It's only like 17 or 21 minutes of your life. You can check the film
21
yourself,
minutes. Okay.
and then you can just
Yeah.
jump into this next conversation, because nothing makes sense in this episode.
well, essentially, the film is like a collection of random shots where things happen that don't make any goddamn sense. For example, there's a guy who is
Oh.
pulling pianos, and on top of the pianos, you have donkeys.
1 second. Did you guys watch this series on HBO Go? It's called it's a Polish series. It's called Blinded by the Light.
No.
All right, you should. You should. It's really good. One of the best Polish series ever, I think. I was quite impressed. But yeah, I could drop you some link because they have some this very surreal scenes that you're talking about, like which does not make any sense.
Okay. Anyway, my idea was that since you haven't seen the movie Ancient Andalou, you would be our prime target to be in this podcast, you being South Korean and all, and the film having nothing to do with South Korea. So without seeing the actual film, what are your thoughts on this film that doesn't make any sense?
Well, it doesn't make any sense. First of all, it doesn't make any sense, I guess.
Yeah. What did you feel about the donkeys that had their eyes gouged out and the sexual harassment of the lady?
Maybe it's a expression of the director, towards the contemporary society, the modern society, the problems in politics.
I hate to break this to you, Lee, but it's not.
Maybe he wasn't thinking. Yeah.
Nobody knows.
But maybe
The
it has
director
no
knows.
meaning. Like it makes it surreal because we're trying to give meaning to it.
Precisely. That's the main point of the film. There's no meaning, and we are goddamn buffoons because we try to give it a meaning.
Exactly.
Am I really?
It's a big prank,
It is. It essentially an Andalusian Dog, whatever was the original title.
Ancient Andalou.
Yeah, precisely. Today's film, as Lee just pointed out, what it essentially is, it is 4chan shitposting as a film. It's a film version of trolling.
Essentially.
Yeah, well, what made you choose such movie that does not make any sense? It seems like you have no clue
We don't.
of how to review the movie.
This is some kind of a sadistic idea of the film schools of having a great time in class. Because this is something that is mandatory for many film schools to watch.
Yeah, so we too try to double it.
Right. Did you go to film school?
Well, film school, I did study audiovisual communication and specialized sort of kind of in camera work, so in studio, so that's my credentials.
So you're proficient in maybe video shooting or...
Yeah.
Very impressive. Still impressive? Yeah.
Super impressive. But Henrik is going to be the master of arts.
Really?
Yeah, I myself, I'm specializing in video and audio, like audio
Very cool.
art and filmmaking, essentially. But my entire degree will be a Master of Arts, which is the sole reason, I guess, why I actually do understand what is modernism and postmodern art and what is Dadaism,
Right.
and what is a surrealist art movement, and can give a short lecture about the subject matter.
You know, that title, that title really holds some sort of authority. Master of Art. Master of Art.
Yeah, so essentially when you have the papers in your hand and you have graduated, you can explain to everybody what andalou doesn't mean.
Pretty much, yeah. Like that is the whole reason I'm actually doing my current education, my current studies. I'm studying just so that I can go with my doctor's papers and make the case that an Andalusian Dog, because goddamn I can't pronounce the name, doesn't actually mean anything.
All right, then, Lee, do you have any dreams that you would like to share us in the fashion of Andalou? Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, let's not do this, Henrik.
I've never watched the film, mate.
Let's not do what? What? Cut Lee in the episode. No, we most definitely. By God, we are actually going to add Lee into an Andalusian Dog episode. If Lee gives us his permission.
Okay, so fine then. Lee, have you seen any groping dreams?
Nah, man. Never watched it.
It's a no problem. It's not a problem with this film and with this episode. Like, the more clusterfuck the whole thing is, it just the better.
The better,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm just here to watch you guys review this surreal donkey eyes gouging out movie. It seems very interesting, so please do go on.
Sure, why not? All right. Henrik, where were we? As far as we can be anywhere in this episode.
We quickly dealt with the background of Dali, I guess.
Do you have, Lee, maybe the window open or something? Or is it somebody screwing around?
Somebody is molesting an elephant at the background.
Oh, okay.
Well, I cannot do anything here, I guess.
Can you make it
it's
less
stopped.
noisy? Or maybe it stopped. Okay.
Let's just keep it. It's a background ambience, and it might actually help the end product.
True. Yeah. So Dali wrote it, and Buñuel directed it. What else do you want me to say? Two crazy guys came together. And they were planning for a sequel for this film together, but they had some creative differences, and Buñuel went on his own way and did it by himself. It ballooned into an over an hour film, and this so-called sequel, what the fuck was the name, Henrik?
It was something.
L'Âge d'Or, the Golden Age. So Dali and Buñuel had a falling out because Buñuel had some strong leftist sympathies, and he desired a deliberate undermining of all the bourgeois institutions, while Dali wasn't too into it because he was into this Spanish fascist Francisco Franco and into all kinds of aristocracy circles. So Buñuel did it by himself, and it was heavily a piece that clearly criticized the church. Was it which church was it, Henrik? Kurva. Everyone still here?
Yep.
Except Lee. Okay.
Did we lose Lee just?
I think yeah.
Well, God, nice. Well,
It fits into this episode.
It fits into the episode. If the episode makes no goddamn sense, it's okay because neither did the film.
So it was heavily critical of the church. It didn't take much time at all until the film was completely banned for 17 years. I'm really not feeling to lecturing about the history regarding this film and the characters because I'm not a fucking expert on this film in any way. But there you go. We can also add that the script was written in 6 days, and apparently Salvador Dali is a fuckwit, if you believe the internet.
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, at the same time, Salvador Dali also... He was a deeply problematic character. There was a lot of kind of baggage that Salvador Dali has to carry throughout his life, which might have really played part in how Dali operated in his later years. I mean, when the guy was young, for Christ's sake, his own parents made him believe that he was the reincarnation of his dead brother
Oh God.
that had died like 9 months before Dali was born, and Dali, well, Dali was a fucking toddler, so of course he goddamn bought it and believed that, yeah, so he was, and also Dali's father was a borderline abusive, so the dude went a bit crazy from the head. Big shocker there.
Yeah.
He still was extremely important and groundbreaking on the art scene, I would say. Like I would almost make the case that surrealism never would have broken the ground that it did had it not been Salvador Dali, because Salvador Dali became kind of the face for surrealism. He was even in the cover of Time magazine, and that was one of the biggest endorsements that the surrealist art movement got maybe ever. So on that regard, yeah, there's a lot to complain in regards to Dali, but he also was, like mentioned, he was a troubled person, and he also was instrumental in shaping the art scene. Like, without Dali, it could be that surrealism never would have gotten the admiration that it has today.
Yeah, regarding the psychological sides of this individual sort of kind of scenes, by maybe the main thematic that is driving them, because there are some of those after all. For example, in the first scene you have I would say the fear of sharp objects being used, and maybe the perverse fascination of what would happen if you would do some harm with those said sharp objects, as we see when the calf's eye is cut in half. And in the scene too, you have different kind of fears. You have the fear of rodents, possibly. You have the fear of death or injuries as the biker hits the ground. And the pleasures of sex, or the pleasure of kissing someone on the street, just like that, because you are infatuated by somebody. Perhaps that's kind of what you do in dreams. If you might be interested in someone, if you feel in the dream that you are in control, you might go to a person and then just do all those naughty things that you have planned in your head without thinking too much about the consequences.
Yeah, and like you pointed out, there is also an aspect of sadist tendencies when it comes to how the characters behave in the film. The filmmakers themselves, they made it perfectly clear that the only way how can actually are allowed to try to break down the film is by taking a psychological viewpoint of the film and trying to kind of build a psychological profile of the creators.
Do you like the cheese cabanos of Finland, Henrik?
No. God damn it! Like
I
would if I would be a vegetarian.
Glad that we cleared that up. Okay, so you were saying?
I was saying that I'm not in any way deep enough in psychiatric profession to actually start to build any kind of a profile about the filmmakers, and because of this, I'm really hesitant to actually try to decipher from the film what they are afraid of and what they want, and essentially what is the form of their subconsciousness.
This is, of course, me just guessing, but I see a lot of possible fears that you would often try to break down in your dreams. I do once in a while, when it comes to sharp objects or people chasing me, or sudden violent moments where somebody's trying to shoot me, which is what happens. There's the sudden unexpected changes in space, or the changes of characters, and there's animals and ants and bodily mutilation. If you ever get in any future connected by a computer into my dreams, that's probably what you would see.
Yeah, it's. I'm once again I'm hesitant to make a statement here, because that's not my experience, so I can't really talk about my dreams or through my dreams and try to say what perhaps what dreams are in the film.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that this is probably what could be going on, or where these might be coming from. Some of these dreamlike moments, like the break of social constructs, such as the dreamlike leveling, and or the surviving people with power. For example, the police understands that you have something that is socially not acceptable, that you have a severed hand in a box, or you're trying to play with the severed hand on the ground.
Then again, at times, like not when you are trying to play with severed hand on the ground. That's not going to be acceptable. But playing with severed hands, depending on occasion, it actually can be acceptable. It can even be admired of all goddamn things.
Oh yeah.
Like take that hand and put it into a medical school. Like to play with the whole dream thing and the mental images. We all have the image of the Victorian medical lecture hall, where there are rows of seats. They go in a circular fashion. There are circle on top of after circle, kind of rising upwards. And in the middle of all those circles, on the ground level, there is the professor who has a fresh cadaver or a severed hand, or that there's someone who has a massive injury, and then there's that stone-faced doctor, the practitioner, who cuts the person open and pulls out his entrails, and he does this completely stone-faced. He's not faced with it at all, and he's been surrounded by these young medical students who all are scribbling their notes, looking at it in kind of a fascination, but are also keeping that stone face on. And that's something which is completely okay, at least in the realm of film. And overall, playing with dead bodies is completely okay if you do it in med school.
Or in some cultures, if you have done something that you perceive as being shameful societally, you would actually get some points for, at least you would feel that you would get some social acceptance if you would sever your own hand after doing something unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, goddamn Yakuza operates on this principle. You have to cut off your fingertips if you fuck up, and in the worst case scenarios, you even have to end your own life by your own hand. That's something that, well, as we kind of already dab about this in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence episode, is something that kind of permeates in Japanese culture. This self-harm if you fuck up aspect.
But what I essentially got from this police scene is that, at least in my scenes, I have moments where the choices that I have made are wrong, or societally seen as wrong. I might have done something horrible, and I expect that the policeman that is now standing in front of me is going to put me into cuffs or even kill me at that point. But in some dreams, it doesn't work that way, because you never get to die in your dreams, right? I don't think I've ever died in any of my dreams. I always survive in some way, or I respawn. And sometimes it works in this way that I don't even need to respawn, but the response that I'm expecting from, for example, a police officer, it doesn't happen at all. It would be something like, okay, I have a severed head here, and the police would just pat me on the back like, good job, continue. Nyt meni linja nollaksi, ootko sä vielä siinä?
Okei, kuuluuko nyt?
Joo.
Okei, yes. Meikäläisellä roden peräpääliitän tarpeeksi hakkaamaan. Yeah, once again, that's something that I can't really comment on, because I don't really have that much experiences with dreams.
Yeah, it's some experts are recommending that you keep a dream diary to better understand all these problems that you might have. In the donkey scene, we have once again a case of death and maybe some kind of a chase that you would experience in a dream as the guy is getting horny. Teleportation powers once again, and weird order of things 16 years before. Which scene made you feel the most nauseated, if any?
For me, there really was no such scene, which actually might mean please send mental help ASAP. But I don't know why, because there was obviously a number of scenes that were meant to cause discomfort and discomfort in the viewer and have a shock effect. And for some reason, even the most famous of them, which would be the splitting of the eye, didn't really have any effect on me. Like I was unfazed when that happened.
You heartless brute.
I might be.
I'm Karri. I studied media. He's Henrik. Studies to be a master of arts.
Yeah. God
Welcome
damn.
to the Flick Lab.
Welcome to the Flick Lab. The podcast that makes no goddamn sense in any way.
This is what the show is about, and let's get right into it. But yeah, it was a very special experience. And what the fuck am I supposed to say here? I've been wondering it for like 90 minutes now.
Yeah, well, you know, the kind of a saving grace of the situation is that by default, the podcast is so rambly and so ill-conceived, constructually wise, that I'm guessing our audiences will actually like notice any difference between this and any other episode that we have done. They already have tuned out, and they are like, we gave our recommendations to the film, and that's the point when they all stopped listening, and now they are just thinking that, well, thank God it was short.
Oh, tässä Janne juoksee tossa. Or what the hell does it matter? Welcome, Janne, to the episode. Great to have you here after a cigarette break.
Sano vielä, että saat saako Jannelta kuuten.
Sorry? Mitä?
Sano vielä, että saat Jannelta kuuten tähän sotkuun.
Kuitin?
Kuoten. Että se sanoo jotain.
Janne! I have a sudden urge to get Janne in this room. Just a moment. Oi, saakeli. My studio.
Saattuko?
Oh, there is Janne. Janne. What did you think of Andalou? Was it a good film, Janne? Want to share us this information? It doesn't matter. It's a surrealist film. So, there you go. It's okay. Okay. Perfectly normal day. Why did we choose this film now?
I guess because we are fucking desperate.
So yeah, we started to do these short films.
It was a horrible mistake, and we should never try it.
Like the thing that is coming painfully obvious here, at least in this big huge name short films, is that It's not so much about the scene by scene analysis. It's more about what surrounds the film, especially true in this case.
Especially in the case of this movie.
Yeah, so we get our marbles completely messed up. What's your history with this film?
I've seen this film, unfortunately, only once in my lifetime, and it was kind of those mandatory viewings. Like, I surprise, I've heard so much about this film. Basically, everyone every now and then brings the film up. So at some point, I just checked it out to finally see the movie and to say that I've seen it. I watched it for the first time, and it didn't actually have any impression on me. Like I watched it, and then I was like, okay, now I've seen it. It was like that. And
Yeah.
never actually thought about it properly. I didn't even, think about it when I originally saw it in the framework of what can I say and what type of film this is. I got kind of I just was like blank and just looking at the movie because I did it out of obligation towards myself. And now when I'm revisiting the movie, watching it for the second time in my miserable life, which means that I'm a bad film buff, I all of a sudden realized that I'm like completely out of my league, and there's nothing I can really talk about with this particular movie.
How do you feel? How do you feel? Very awkward now, Henrik. Do you feel that we will be the target of Kalle Kinnunen's film criticism next? This Finnish film critic who has, let's say, a very Finnish spirit.
Most likely, Kalle Kinnunen will tell us how we know nothing about movies, which is absolutely true, and Kalle is correct.
What?
This is a horrible joke, the entire podcast, and we are buffoons when we even attempt to do a goddamn film podcast. But I do maintain it would have been even more worse if we would have actually tried to make an honest to God analysis of the film and try to make some kind of a deep dive into what is the symbolism of the film and what it means. Fuck that. In that case, it wouldn't just be Kalle Kinnunen putting us on our places. It would have been Kalle Kinnunen driving over us with a goddamn dumpster truck, then dumping all the nuclear waste that he has in his dumpster truck on top of our rotting corpses, and then just letting the whole pile on fire, and then telling us that we don't know what the fuck we are doing.
I don't care if it's Kalle Kinnunen or Quentin Tarantino. Whoever fucking claims that the best film to come out of the 2010s is The Social Network needs a beating on Twitter.
Actually, I'm more with Kalle than I'm with you here. I don't
Wow.
I don't agree with
Wow.
Tarantino. I don't agree with Kalle Kinnunen. The Social Network is not the best film of the decade. It's not that good, but it's still pretty damn good.
That's more honest. Okay, would it be time for the quickies?
No, I'm skipping the quickies. You can do the quickies, and Kalle Kinnunen can let you have it.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do them either. I guess this is a good point to stop this episode.
Janne can do the fucking quickies for us.
Oh, the guy is too shy, unfortunately.
Today we have had the best guests of the entire podcast. This is top notch film reporting.
I'm just giving the friendly treatment to this film that it gave to me.
The best part of this whole charade is we haven't explained Dadaism, we haven't explained surrealism, and we haven't explained the history of fucking filmmakers. Like the personal background of Salvador Dali or any of that nonsense, which would have been the most logical take you could have actually done on this episode. Like try to buy yourself more minutes by talking about what is Dada and what is surrealism and what are all these different art movements that exist in real world.
Why is nobody bringing up dandyism? Like exploring why and how Salvador Dali is such of a self-centered cockwit.
Well, that would actually require us to dive deep into Salvador Dali's personal history and background to try to find answers to the questions nobody is asking.
How are you gonna spend your midsummer, Henrik?
I don't know. Most likely I will. I guess I'm going to fill my long-time dream. I'm gonna travel into the ass end of Sweden to meet a bunch of who will eventually sue me inside of a rotting bear skin and put me in a house and then set the house on fire.
I think you have just put yourself into the wrong space. But there are some correct elements here. Bonfire, summer houses. But don't teleport into the bonfire.
Rotting bear skins.
Yeah, but okay. This was not fun at all.
Speak for yourself. I had a kind of a blast. This is the dumbest thing we have done in the history of this podcast, and in a way, I kind of love it.
Quid pro quo. This kind of movie, this kind of episode.
This kind of an episode. Which does actually remind me, Karri. Do you know that typically, like a male horse, like a stallion, when a stallion ejaculates, it discharges its load with a force of 125,000 CFS, which is the force of a stream as it shoots out of a fire hose, which means that that's so much power that if you would be sucking off a stallion, the force of the ejaculation might actually slash your internal organs and cause tearing in your esophagus or your windpipes, which is the sole reason why you actually shouldn't go and give a horse a blowjob.
The alcoholism is already destroying my esophagus, so no problem there. Don't need any exploding horses on my face. But did you know that Roberto Esquivel Cabrera, 54 years old, has a whopping 18.9 inches and weighing 2 pounds of a dick?
I didn't know that. God damn.
It's almost a kilogram.
What the fuck am I doing with my arts degree when I didn't know that? Like, Jesus Christ. If we ever do another porn episode, so actually ask that guy to be our guest and just then spend the entire episode just talking and asking questions about his dick.
But it's nothing unforeseeable in this product.
So what's next? Do we actually try to tackle with not Dadaism and cover Freddy Got Fingered from what was the dude's name? John Green, Stephen Green, Jack Black, something like that.
Well, it depends. Do you want to check out Alien? Because Alien's release date has just happened. So we could celebrate the... Oh, how much is it? 41 years of Alien reign.
Well, shit, why not? Aliens sound pretty okay at this point.
What I really want to do as our 99th episode, though, is the sprinkle, to bring this show to the ultimate moment of confusion and hardship. How to review this one as the probably most challenging short film that you can do even more challenging than this one.
Because we are doing such a bang-up job as we speak.
At least that film has a beginning, middle, and an end. So
well, so did this one. None of it just happened to make any goddamn sense, but it did have those.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like come on, Karri, we are not dealing with French New Wave here.
I will go sprinkle some sprinklation into the toilet, so thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Just remember to keep on recording so that we don't miss anything from this spectacle.
Will do. Joo, hyvä kakku tuli.
Oi vittu, mikä sä oot. Voidaan ihan kusipäin sitten me vielä jättää nämä saatana suomenkielisetkin kommentit tähän näin ihan loppuun, että ainoastaan suomenkieliset kuuntelijat ymmärtävät, että vittua me helistään kaiken päätteeksi.
Minkä takia me alettiin tekemään tätä englanniksi? Mä oon välillä miettinyt, että no joo, ehkä meillä olisi enemmän kuuntelijoita, jos me tehtäisiin tätä suomeksi. Tai sitten ihan vittuillakseen vaan, niin vedetään vaikka episode 100 pari minuuttia suomeksi.
Eikö me aloitettu englanniksi sen takia, koska sä oit ollut niin kauan Puolassa, että sä koit, että englanti sujuu paremmin kuin suomi?
No se oli yksi syy, mutta sitten kans se, että en mä halunnut jättää kavereita, tuttuja tai oikein ketään tai ulkopuolelle.
Siitäkö se on vittu kiitelty? Mä voin uskoa, että on ollut joulupöydässä hiljasta perheen kesken.
Joskus mä mietin, että miten suomalaiset ylipäänsä näkee tällaisen, että kuinka moni jaksaa kuunnella tästä kaksi suomalaista höpöttää englanniksi.
Oma pikkuveli ihan koitti, jakso 5 minuuttia ja keskeytti.
Oikeesti?
Kyllä.
Oh, such devotion.
Se on ne verisiteet, saatana soikku. Ne on tiukat. Ne johtaa siihen, että ihmiset tekee uhrauksia jokapäiväisessä elämässä.
No vielä ei ole myöhäistä päästä eroon niistä viimeisissäkin kuuntelijoista ja vaihtaa kieli kesken kaiken. Kukaan varmaan edes huomaisi, mitä tapahtuu.
Se olisi liian malopäille ihan oikein. Vaihdetaan kiinni. Me pidetään huoli siitä, että jaksojen nimet on kaikki englanniksi. Se hämää, jos saa joko lisää kuuntelijoita ja sitten voi olla sillä, että mitä vittua tää on.
Niin, tää oli tämmönen 100 jakson Madventures Season 3 sellout moment ja sitten vaihdetaankin takaisin kotikieleen. Joo. Kylläpä kyllä. No ainakaan mulla ei tule mitään editointipaineita tästä jaksosta, että tää voi olla ihan miten tää
Joo, ei kyllä mitään. Voit itse asiassa julkistaa sen vaan tällaisena suoraan. Voidaan jättää Leen. Otat vaan siis, kopioit Leen Time to Hunt kommentit ja liität ne siihen Time to Hunt jaksoon, mutta jätät ne myös tähän. Se sillä. Voidaan vaihtaa leffaakin lennosta.
Mä vähän ajattelin, että jotain leikkisää silläkin voisi tehdä. Kyllä. No meinasin vähän niinku editointirakennettakin sillä lailla muuttaa, että tunnarin voi tunkea jonnekin hevon perseeseen ja sitten aloittaa vaikka sillä lopputunnarilla.
Voidaan soittaa avaustuntari puolessa välissä jaksoa sillä. Welcome to Flick Lab.
Nimenomaan. Kai sitä lapsi saa kerralla.
Niin on. Siitäkös meitä sitten taas vaihteeksi YouTubessa kiitelläänkin.
Ensikertalaiskuulijat voi olla hiukan hukassa.
Mutta se sinällään kyllä sopisi tähän. Sopisi tähän jaksoon. Sopisi tähän leffaan.
Joo, antaa mennä vaan.
No itse asiassa, ihan oikeasti, koska surrealismin se pääidea oli se, että sun pitää koittaa niinku päästä mahdollisimman syvälle sun alitajuntaasi, ammentaa sieltä. Ja niinku alitajunnan kautta vetää tunteella ja lonkalta niinku oikeastaan koko suoritus. Niin mä itse asiassa sanoin, että kun tää editoi, niin editoi vaan tismalleen sillä lailla, kun itseä huvittaa. Eikä mieti sitä asiaa yhtään.
Nimenomaan, eikö se ollut just tarkoitus, että mitä ikinä milläkin hetkellä mieleen juolahtaa, niin käytät sitä heti.
Siis se oli, että siinä mielessä se itse asiassa ihan oikeasti sopii surrealismiin. Siis jopa nämä suomenkieliset osiot itse asiassa halutessaan voi käyttää siinä jaksossa. Eihän niissä ole paskaakaan järkeä, mutta jos se editointihetkellä tuntuu hauskalta jutulta, niin se sopii surrealismin teemaan ihan täysin.
Joo, jättää nämä vaan tänne sinne loppuun. Mut mä olin kyllä tosissani, täytyy mennä kohta ruiskuttaa tonne.
Okei, hei, ei pidätellä teikää enempää. Mä sammutan nauhurit täältä ja...
Joo.
Niin. Oliko se Alien ensi viikolla?
No en mä nyt ehkä tiedä mitä muutakaan sitten tässä varmaan mitään sen järkevämpääkään. Hetkinen. Meillä ei oikeastaan taida olla mitään kunnon listaa edes tuon Alienin jälkeen, paitsi se Dogs Google.
Mutta, joo, ei. Meillä itse asiassa kalenteri rupeaa sekoilemaan tässä vaiheessa aika pahasti.
Joo.
Alieni on vielä. Sitten on 2 viikkoa, kun meillä ei ole leffaa. Voi se pitemmään vähän miettiä, että pitäisikö sinne katsoa leffaa. Sitten meillä on 98, millä ei ole tällä hetkellä nimeä. Sitten meiltä puuttuu 99 ja sitten meillä on 100. Ja 100 sen jälkeen me nauhoitetaan Andalusialainen koira.
Obsesta. Otetaanpa pois. Siellä se kummittelee.
En ole nyt vaatimassa lisää taukoja, mutta 2 vuodesta en meinaa kyllä ainakaan niin kuin suostua vähempään. Et mun mielestä se me tarvitaan ja niin kuin suoraan sanottuna jo niin kuin ihan oikeasti ansaitaankin. Tätä nyt sen verran kuitenkin koville ottaa.
Oli sen verran kova jakso taas, että kyllä.
No mutta helvetti saako ensi kerralla Alien ja sitten me joudutaan tekemään jo ihan oikea jakso.
Se on totta.
Ehkä me voidaan katsoa enemmänkin näitä helvetin taidehärppäyshommeleita, mitkä voidaan sitten vaan perseellä. Taikka sitten me voidaan ihan oikeasti, mä edelleen sitä mietin, siis jos hätätilanne tulee, niin katsoa saataisiin, he kuolivat kumisaappaat jalassa. Ja kaikkea muuta Iron Sword Productions materiaalia, mikä kukaan ei koskaan pääse käsiksi. Ja olla sillä, että elokuva on olemassa, sama vikanne kuin ette voi nähdä sitä. Hakekaa se käsiin ne opinat. Mut hei, mun täytyy varmaan päästä sut.
Jes, no pistellään viestiä, ei tässä sen kummempaa nyt.
Pistellään viestiä, mä haluan valmistautua siihen Alieniin.
Joo. Yes, palataan.
Moikka.
Moi. So how are we in the bench again? So how are we here again? What is this? Am I tied physically to this chair?
I guess neither one of us just have any goddamn life.
But you know what, Henrik? You're not getting it.
Yeah, I'm not. And that's about it.
Really?
Yeah, well, the economy went boo-boo. But what? But your own life doesn't mean anything? By all means, perform an armed robbery against mafia, because somebody has to do it.
Well, how does it make it so?
I have this friend who has hotels, bike shops, tourism shops, all these businesses, and he makes 8,000 a month. Well, yeah, I'm rolling in money. I like somebody is molesting an elephant at the background.
Oh, okay.